Hello everyone, this is Tana and we are at Hanyong, the magnificent Seoul City Wall. This wall has been witness to many great historical events and there's so many stories to tell. Let's go and check out what stories. Last time we started our journey from Changgi-mun, which is the oldest gate of Hanyang-dosang, to Cheonggundae with a beautiful view. In this episode, we will take on another interesting historical adventure. Let's start! Here's our guide, Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you. Wow, Suzanne, what is this? What is this graffiti?
Oh, what are you seeing back there? Oh, the writing on the wall.
Yes.
In Korean, that's called 각자 성속. But in English, we call it Inscribed Stones. And these are actually one of my most favorite parts of Hanyong Tosong. Because when I look at that stone, I feel like I can actually touch the DNA of the people who built the stone. Along Hanyong Tosong, there are about 288 of these inscribed stones.
Oh, really? Wow.
And some of them date from the late 14th century when the Hanyong Tosong was first built. And at that time they were inscribed on the ramparts, the lower portion of the wall.
Okay.
And they just said something very simply, like, remember we learned each section had a name?
Yes, I remember that.
Yes, so they simply said this is the beginning of the heaven section, or this is the beginning of the earth section.
Yeah.
And some of the stones at that time would also talk about the place that the builders came from. So for example, Gyeongsang near Daegu, the builders who came up from that area were in charge of building that particular section.
Wow.
But later on, these inscribed stones start to appear on the parapets. And this one has a great deal of detailed information. So if we look at this, if we read the Chinese characters, the first two lines here basically talk about the dates when these repairs were made. And now we know this was about 1804 in the 10th month of the year. And then these lines here show us the actual names of the people who participated in the repair of the wall.
This is so personalized, right?
It's very personalized. It's very personalized. And then, I don't know, when you take the subway, if you go to the very, very end of the subway platform, you'll find this particular placard up on the wall.
Yes, I've seen
Okay, you've seen that. And this is basically a record of the men and other people who were in charge of the building of the subways. So this is from Anguk Station, and it basically says the construction on this particular section, the subway station, occurred from 1981 to 1985, and these are the names of the people, the engineers who participated in the construction. So the tradition of having a real name system and responsibility for the construction, and responsibility if on your section of the wall, if it collapsed, you knew that you had to come back and rebuild it.
Wow.
The same idea in responsible construction carries on even till today.
It's my first time hearing about it, and I think it's so, it's crazy good.
Yes, I mean, this connection with the past is always around us.
Wow.
Okay,
Thank you for letting me know.
Okay,
about
so
it.
as we walk along, we'll see many more of these. So be on the lookout for them.
I will definitely do that.
Even now, more are being discovered. So as you walk along the wall and you see something that looks like writing, be sure and take a note and report it. And it might be a new inscribed stone.
You never know, right?
Never know.
So let's go check out if we find any new ones.
Yes, if we're lucky, we will.
Yes.
Okay.
In your introduction, you mentioned some hidden gates. Is it the secret gate we see here?
Excellent, yes. This is called in Korean Ammun, which means dark or hidden gate.
Okay.
Now the purpose of these gates, or one of the purpose of these gates, was that perhaps during the time of a military conflict, the enemy would know the location of all the main gates. And they would be waiting for the soldiers outside those gates.
Yes.
But if you had to get provisions or supplies or move troops, you needed to have gates that were not well known.
So no one knew about it?
No one except, of course, the military knew about them, but these gates were not even marked on any maps. They were kept very, very hidden. So in the purpose during the time of some sort of military conflict that they could be used.
Wow, and when were they built?
No one knows exactly, and no one knows exactly where they were. Some
Yes.
of them have been added recently, some of them were there for a long time. So they remain hidden to history except for what we can see right here now.
Well, one thing for sure, they're very important.
They're very
Yes.
important, very good. So let's go and learn a little bit more about the construction of the wall. You notice that there are all sorts of different stone shapes.
Yes,
and there's
that's
a
really
history
true.
and a reason behind that.
Wow.
So should we head over there?
Let's go. I have noticed that all the stones, they're so different. And is there like a reason behind it? Like, I'm so curious.
These stones tell us a tremendous story about the history of Hanyong Tosong. When the wall was first built in 1396, they used stones that were uncut. So just random stones that the workers could pick up and pile one upon another, and in between just small stones were stuck to maintain the stability of the wall.
Yeah, I see that.
When this initial round of construction occurred, believe it or not, over 200,000 ordinary citizens were asked to come to Seoul from all over Korea and spend a total of 98 days building this wall. It's an incredible feat of construction.
So they're all like together building this wall.
Yes,
united.
And the interesting thing is that they picked people. They asked people to come from all over the country, and I think there were two purposes. One is that they didn't want to take too many people from one particular area, and they were assigned a quota based on the population of that province. But another thing was this was a new dynasty, and they had to tell the entire country, hey, we're a new dynasty and we're serious and this is our new capital. So by inviting people from all over the country, that message went out.
Wow.
But it was built so quickly, and only 30% of it was actually stone walls. 70% were earthen walls, that they decided about 20 years later that they had to rebuild the entire wall in stone. And this was during the period of Sejong, King Sejong, in 1422. And we have a great example of a wall from the Sejong era right behind you. Okay? And you notice some of the characteristics of this wall, that at the bottom there are very large stones, and as you get to the top,
they get like smaller, right?
They get smaller and smaller, and they're also cut, they're rounded. But it shows there's more sophistication in the building technique. And beginning in this area, actually specialized military divisions did take part in the construction of the wall. Then, many years later, over the years, Korea had been invaded, and the wall had been threatened many times. It was decided there needed to be an entirely more complex defense system for the city. And so during the reign of King Sukjeong, which was in the early 18th century, yes, the wall was extensively renovated. And so you see the more square blocks.
Yes.
These were about 40 by 45 centimeters. So there's here some are a little bit larger, some are a little bit smaller. But the blocks became much larger.
Yeah, I see
Their
that.
building and maintenance was totally supervised by the military. And the main reason why these stones became bigger was the weapons that could be used to attack the wall changed. So in the early years, the weapons that could attack the wall were driven by human power, like arrows or spears thrown, that type of thing. Later on, weapons became more sophisticated, so you had artillery, heavier artillery.
Like guns as well.
Yes, that were pounding the wall, and you needed stones that were bigger to absorb the impact of that. So this is an amazing example of manpower and the successful use of manpower throughout the Joseon dynasty to first build the walls and then successfully maintain it over the years.
You know what also really, really surprised me and also inspired me, like when you mentioned when they first made the wall, that they actually invited all the people around the nation, right, to build it together. I feel like it was also a part of like uniting everyone together.
Well, it's interesting. They were invited, but it was also their civic duty to participate in this. And they asked the men to come in the seasons when they were not busy. Because they're basically, in the first round of building, they're basically farmers. And so if you ask a farmer to come when they're planting or when they're harvesting, that could cause a serious problem because people wouldn't have the food they need.
Of course.
So they asked them to come in the months when they were not busy with farming. And How heavy do you think those stones are?
I have no idea.
Well, the smaller stones are about 30 kilos.
Kilogram.
Okay, so I figure, okay, strong man could lift that. But these bigger stones range from 300 to 400 kilos.
Like single stone?
Yep, a single stone.
How did they lift that?
So
Like,
they had very sophisticated construction techniques to be able to lift that. We'll see that also later in our tour on Namsan.
Okay, I'm really excited.
So
Yes.
be excited. Alrighty.
Yes.
Okay, let's head on.
Yep. Before you talked about these figures, and could you tell us more in detail? What is this? Like, what are those?
I'll tell you what I know, and they're very intriguing to me. You'll find these on the rooftops of palace buildings and the gates along the Hanyong Tosong.
Yes.
Here we only have 7 figures. And what's really interesting to me is you see that man sitting on the very edge there?
Yes.
That's actually a monk.
Really?
And
Wow.
following him are characters from a Ming Dynasty novel, a Chinese classic novel called Journey to the West. And that monk character travels from China to India to get a copy of the sutra. So it's a Buddhist story. There's Taoist and even Confucian elements in it too. But these characters all appeared in that novel. And from what I read, that novel was very popular in Korea in the 17th century. But what I haven't been able to find out exactly is who decided to put those particular characters on the eaves of the gate pavilion and the other buildings. And as I mentioned earlier, folk belief is that they're there to ward off evil and prevent fire. And fire, of course, is a big danger because these buildings are all built of wood.
Right?
Wood.
Yeah, it's very dangerous.
So we go down and look a little bit more about Sukjeongmun, the northern gate.
Let's go.
So we're here at the entrance to Sukjeongmun, which is the northern gate of the Hanyong Tosang. Let's go down and see what we can find here.
Oh, I've noticed there are no paintings on the wall.
Very good. Yes, there are no paintings here, and I don't know the reason why there aren't any paintings, but the supposition is that this gate really wasn't designed to be heavily used, if used at all, because it's located directly behind the palace areas, and naturally for security reasons, you wouldn't want to have people coming back and forth. Should we go through and step outside again? So we step outside here and turn around, and what do we see? This is the only gate that still has the wall attached on both sides.
Wow.
Remember, Changgimun had the wall on one side.
Yes,
Unfortunately, the south gate is isolated by itself in the middle of the street. But this particular gate is very, very special because we can imagine, what did this look like in the Joseon Dynasty?
Like you have the feeling of it, right?
The feeling of it, and the very magnificent wall here. The other little bit unusual thing about this gate is that we're not really sure whether or not there was a gate pavilion.
Oh, really?
The original documentation about the wall says that each gate had a pavilion, but most of the maps that date from 18th, 19th century, so no gate pavilion up there. And we don't know whether it was because it was burned in the Imjin Wars in the 1590s, or whether originally this gate was not intended to be used that much, so they didn't build it. But anyway, in a lot of the restoration that occurred in the mid-1970s, scholars argued back and forth, but it was finally decided, okay, we're going to build a gate pavilion up there.
Okay.
And the president at the time was Park Chung-hee, and he was asked to provide the calligraphy.
Oh.
So it's a Sukjeongmun, but it's written in an unusual order from left to right. Do you remember
Last time was from right to left. I remember that.
So that's one of the unusual features of this gate also.
Oh.
So, you ready to head back out?
I'm ready for that.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
How was it for you today?
I loved it so much. And actually, it's my 4th year in Korea, but it's my first time in Hanyong Dosang.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I found it so interesting that it goes well with the nature. And my favorite part is that even though it's been here for decades, but it's so well preserved.
Yes.
Yeah, and the fact that we can walk here, talk about Korean history, I think it's really precious.
Yes.
So thank you so much for today. I really
it was my
liked it.
pleasure. Yeah.
And guys, this is it of Baegak tour. And in our next episode, we'll be uncovering the secrets of Dongdaemun Gate, which is now known as the center of fast fashion. So if you like this video, please make sure to like it and subscribe. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.